Hi guys, Jackie with Famished Farm, and I'm back in the kitchen this week making some new recipes from my recipe stash. Part of the year of minimal me was reducing my 4-inch tall stack of recipes into manageable recipes that are in the rotation. Whether it's seasonally or weekly, whatever the case may be, just go through the recipes and find the ones I love and get rid of the rest. So this week I'm using, again, my meal planner, and I'm going to be making 3 new recipes. First up, we have a spiced cod with broccoli quinoa pilaf. This is a really old recipe from a magazine, but I did find it on the sparkpeople.com website, and it's word for word the same exact recipe. Then we have a cracked chicken penne. And guys, this one was really good, I will tell you. This one is from insanelygoodrecipes.com. And our third recipe this week is a long one. Ginger meatball ramen with greens and scallion. So stay tuned. You'll want to see how this goes in the kitchen. I will warn you, I make lots of changes and the recipes really become more inspiration than actual recipes that I follow. So stay tuned. Guys, let's get cooking. This is a very old recipe, guys. I don't have any idea how long I've had it, but I picked it because I'm always trying to add fish to our menu, healthy recipes. We're going to start with an onion, and I'm going to slice this. That really wants you to chop it. And then I don't have scallions, so I'm just going to grab a couple green onions and just slice those up instead of the scallions. The recipe calls for some raisins, and that is just not something that Rod. So I'm got lots of apples in the house. I'm going to go ahead and just use a Gala apple, and I'm not going to peel it. I am going to core it, and then I will slice it and chop it. Now, if you're trying to get your family to eat raisins, you might want to consider trying golden raisins to see if you can sneak them in. I just opt to switch the fruit entirely and go with the apples. So here we are. Now we're moving on to our broccoli, and it just calls for 2 cups of chopped broccoli. I'm going to save the stem, and I put that on our salads at lunchtime, so that will go back in the fridge. And just chop your broccoli into small pieces. This is just a small head. I don't measure this. It looks like about 2 cups, so we're going to go with it. Over on the stove top, we're going to prepare our pan, and we've got just a couple teaspoons here of oil, and we're going to put our chopped onions or your onion slices into the pan. The pan got pretty hot, so I'm going to just work with these onions so they don't totally burn. And then we're going to add the apples also. Now when we get this back on the heat, it wants you to cook it over medium-high heat for 3 to 4 minutes. You want things to get soft and just starting to brown. We'll give that a stir. And then you'll season with some salt and pepper. Now remember, I said I'm making lots of changes. I don't have quinoa in the house right now, but I happened to buy this couscous on clearance. It was a good deal, and I thought we'd try it. And I've got a couple boxes of it, so I'm going to use this instead of the quinoa. So I'm just going to follow the directions on the box. If you're using the quinoa, you're going to add 1.5 cups of water. Reduce the heat to low once it comes to a boil. Cover it, and then you're going to simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm just going to follow the directions on my box of couscous. And you'll notice I did throw away the seasoning packet that came with the couscous. We're obviously not going to use that. We're going to pull this off the heat. Once it comes up to temperature, I'll put the cover on it. And then we're going to start with our fish. And here I've just seasoned the fish with a little bit of paprika and salt and pepper. And I'm placing the seasoned side down in my cast iron. We are roughly medium high heat. This is my high temperature burner. Things usually cook very fast if I'm not careful. The fish you're going to cook for just 3 or 4 minutes on each side. And I will say that the cooking time was very accurate. I probably went more toward the 4-minute end of things, but certainly you could flip it at 3 minutes. And guys, you'll want to season the other side of your fish too. Here's the paprika. And if you like, you might add more salt and pepper if you like those things. Over here, I have put the broccoli in the microwave for a few minutes to start the cooking because my broccoli is not going to cook with the quinoa, or in my case, couscous. You're also going to add your raisins or apples, which I've already done. And then here we've chopped some almonds, and this was a really nice addition, nice crunchy addition. It's a cup of, half a cup rather, of roasted almonds, and I've just used some lightly salted Fisher's, I guess, almonds. A little salt and pepper at this point. And I do taste this to make sure that that was needed, and it did need the extra salt and pepper. Okay guys, now you are going to add in your green onions or your scallions in too. And this is going to be done ahead of the fish, so I'm just going to cover it and let it sit. Over in the cast iron, the fish flips perfectly, which I can't say that that always happens, so how nice that it is. Part of it is that nice, oh, you know what, I'm not in my cast iron. This is my wok. My IKEA wok that is my favorite pan, and it does a pretty good job of not only cooking the fish, browning it nicely, and flipping. That, I think that rounded edge helps a lot. We're going to cook this another 3-4 minutes on the other side. And guys, basically, once this fish is done on the other side, dinner is ready. It's that quick. Now, we really enjoyed this. This is a recipe we're going to hang on to, and I do like it because the changes we made, apples instead of the raisins, couscous instead of the quinoa. I'm sure that with the recipe as written, it's going to be delicious, but we liked it our way too. So I think it's leaves you open for lots of interpretation and experimenting using what you already have in your pantry to finish dinner. And that's basically what we did here. 2 thumbs up from us. I have seen cracked chicken recipes since Pinterest, my Pinterest days. I'm not really on Pinterest that much anymore, but this type of recipe has been floating around the web for a long time. So in this version, you are supposed to start with sliced bacon, and I'm just going to use my bacon bits that I've already got in the fridge. And then I'm going to dice up, I've got a white onion here. Actually, I think it's a yellow onion. Anyway, you want about a half a cup of diced onion. And guys, I kind of skip over a bunch of getting that chicken prepared, or lost the footage, I don't know. But what you're going to do is heat your bacon up, cook your bacon for 9 to 12 minutes till it's crispy. I just heated mine up to see if I could render any more fat out of it. Because I couldn't, I just added a little bacon grease to the pan before I put my chicken in the pan. You're going to want to salt and pepper your chicken, and this is kind of where you're joining me now. I've added some chicken broth. In my case, I use bone broth, and I'm doing just a half a recipe, so I did about a cup and a half of the bone broth. And then black pepper, and the seasoning that you saw me put in was just my ranch herbs. I make a dry spice mix from ranch seasoning, and that's what I used in this case. And then I used about 5 ounces of the penne, and that's going to be uncooked. So I'm trying to kind of mash the penne down into the broth so that that will cook. I'm going to adjust my temperature a little bit and then put the lid on. And Basically, guys, you've already cooked the chicken just till it was brown. So that was 5-6 minutes. Now you're going to let this sit on low with a cover on it and simmering for about the next 15 to 20 minutes. While you do that, get out your block of cream cheese. I'm just going to use 4 ounces of cream cheese. And it does say to cube it, and that's just simply to make it easier to melt this into the sauce when we get to that point. So I'm going to have to open a new package of cream cheese, but we're just going to cube that up quick. I'm going to open a block of Colby Jack. I don't usually buy Colby Jack, and in this case it was only available in the 1 pound block. But we're just going to do a cup of shredded cheese for my half a recipe. And now I'm just stirring this around to make sure that the noodles are cooked. I'm going to test a noodle there. We're going to add in a can of condensed cream of chicken soup. I'm just using the Walmart variety, and just a half a can. I put the other half a can in the fridge, so we'll see if we can use that down the road. Actually, I put it in the freezer. Hopefully it will freeze okay. Now we've added the cream cheese, and you just simply want to melt this cream cheese into your pasta. And then we're going to add our cheese. You're going to add just half of it and mix that into your dish. I forgot to chop up my parsley. I still have fresh parsley out in the garden, so I had run out and grabbed a couple handfuls of parsley. We're going to destem it and then roughly chop it. And we're not going to eat this right away, but when we do go finally to eat, we'll end up putting our cheese. It's going to sit on the stovetop like this, not on the heat, for quite a while. But once we're ready, we'll come back, we'll add the parsley on top. Actually, this is the parsley we're going to add into the dish, and then I'm going to save out a little bit of parsley for the top to garnish. And then we'll top it with the cheese and the rest of the parsley. Now, guys, both Rod and I love this. This is not a health food. This is one of those dishes I call kind of a potluck recipe or a company coming over recipe. It's not one that will go in our weekly rotation. Oh my God, yes, and don't forget the bacon. You got to put your bacon sprinkles on there too. This is absolutely delicious. I can see why it's so popular, but in our house, this is not something we will have every week. But definitely I'm hanging on to this recipe. It was that good. Rod and I love Asian recipes, so this real simple recipe was kind of a no-brainer to try. It's got a quick cook time and all of the ingredients in it we like. So this is my Walmart ground pork. I think it's 1.25 pounds. We've got 2 large eggs. And then the recipe calls for fresh ground black pepper. I'm just going to use my pepper shaker and dole out what I think is an appropriate amount of pepper for Rod and I. You guys do you. Measure if you must. Next, we've got no scallions in this house, but I do have some green peppers. So we're just going to use 2. I said green pepper. This is obviously a green onion. We're just going to thinly slice this couple of green onions, the white and the green portion, and then we'll put that into our pork mixture. Please note on the recipe that the next couple of ingredients you're going to be splitting between the pork mixture and the broth mixture. So I'm going to put in 1.5 tablespoons of the soy sauce, and then I use just a little bit of sesame oil. That's maybe a teaspoon, half teaspoon, something like that. And this ginger has come out of my freezer. I chopped it up some time ago, so we're just going to use up what we've got in there. And then just mix your meatball mixture. Once you've got that mixed up, we're going to move over to the stovetop. And I have a new Dutch oven. Look at this. I love the little silicone handles, removable handles that come with this. So guys, I'm just going to use my hands and create balls that are roughly 1.5 inches. And let me just tell you that this part doesn't really work out. I am not a great meatball maker. I don't have a lot of patience, and I don't know if I didn't wait long enough or what, but once this first batch, and we're going to do this in 2 batches, but once this first batch of meatballs is ready to be turned, and it says turn them often until browned and almost cooked through. It should take about 8 minutes. Well, guess what? Things start sticking, and oh my gosh, I had a mess. So my solution, and you'll see they're just a little bit too tender to flip over. It's just not going well. So what do I decide to do? Hey, the good news is that I'm getting a nice sear on at least one of the sides of the meatball. And I am really trying to make this work, but guys, this is not going to work. So the solution is just chop it up and cook it. And I'm going to do that with the second batch here too. And then once that's done cooking in roughly about 8 minutes, you're going to transfer it to a plate. I just added the paper towels just so we get most of the grease off here. And that was a good move. You'll see why toward the end when I add the meat back into the broth. And I'm not going to show you the cooking of the second batch of meatballs, which I basically turn into just ground pork. Now, you guys do you. If I could make them in the oven, I might stand a better chance, but I think in the future I'll just do exactly what I did before. Now we're going to finish or start our broth mixtures, and what we need for that is some more green onions. So we're going to chop up some more green onions here. And then we are going to use the same pot that we use to cook our meatballs. We're just going to add a little bit of oil. The recipe calls for canola. Use whatever you've got. And then we're going to put in the green onions and the rest of the bag of ginger. And we're just going to let that become aromatic. So that'll take just a couple minutes or a minute over, good medium heat or so. You want to keep that stirring so it doesn't burn. And then we're going to add our broth mixture. And it calls for vegetable broth, a quart. I found some organic vegetable broth at Walmart. It was very good. I would use this again. And then we're going to add a quart of water. So 4 cups of water. Boy, taking a long time here. Now, another thing the recipe calls for that I don't very often have in the fridge is mirin. And I read one time that you can substitute hoisin with a little bit of sweetener. So I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce and then about a 1/4 teaspoon or so of stevia. It also calls for adding the rest of the soy sauce and a little bit of your sesame oil. And I don't think I added that, but stay tuned here. And wouldn't you know it, a couple weeks ago when I was at Trader Joe's, they had white miso paste. And guess what? I finally get to use it. So the recipe calls for a 1/4 cup. And then you're going to actually spoon out some of this broth that you've got heating up and mix that into your miso paste. And it just helps incorporate it, I think, into the soup. I've never cooked with miso before, so I'm not sure exactly what would happen if you just dump that in. But I'm going to do just what the recipe said and add a little bit of broth. I think I ended up adding maybe a 1/4 cup of broth. I'll grab my whisk and whisk this all together just so it's nice and smooth before I incorporate it. Now, this recipe called for something else like miso that I might not usually have in the house, but bok choy, baby bok choy, I think I've only bought it one time. And it calls for 6 heads of baby bok choy. I don't have it, so I do have celery. So I'm going to chop up 3 stalks of celery and just kind of half moon shapes. And this was really good in the soup. So if you don't have access to bok choy, try the celery instead. We're just going to add that all to the broth mixture. Then you're going to add back in, first let's add those ramen noodles. You want to get your broth nice and warm. And then we'll kind of throw away the packets of the spices and kind of break up your noodles a little bit. Those of you that are ramen pros probably are laughing that I'm using the little cheapy packages. I don't know where to buy ramen noodles that aren't in the little packages. If you guys know, please let me know. But this worked out really well. And guys, again, this was a really easy supper and it was delicious. It was easier because I think I seared the meat in like ground meat instead of trying to make the meatballs. Next time I will just avoid that step altogether. Now, we're just going to let the noodles, it only takes a couple minutes for the noodles to become soft and I can separate them. Then I'm going to add back in the ground pork. The recipe also calls for nori. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, cut into strips to top it as a garnish, I guess. I don't have it, not something I'm going to buy, but even without it, this was really good, guys. This was easy, fast, delicious. 2 thumbs up. This will go into the rotation. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed these recipes. Please make them. They were all really good recipes this week. All 3 of these recipes turned out to be super delicious and they will go into the rotation. Remember, I'm trying to keep recipes healthier. So for instance, the cracked chicken penne, that is probably more of a company dish, but it was really good and filling. And maybe that is the way to think of it. For a cold winter night, it's just a good comfort meal. And every once in a while, you need one of those. So that's the kind of meal that is. Anyway, guys, we had a great time cooking this week, and I hope you'll come back and see us next time when we're in the kitchen. Thanks for being here.